Hi, I'm Jeff Joyner from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a professional keynote speaker and trainer. I have a YouTube channel called An Epic Life. And as of a few months ago, I'm an author. I partnered with Palmetto Publishing to publish my first book, Say It Like It Matters When It Matters, Communicating with Power, Effectiveness, and Authenticity. And it's been a wild adventure over the last year, writing, publishing, and launching this book. And the fine folks at Palmetto asked me if I'd make a little video sharing with you my experience in case you might be considering writing a book yourself. So in this quick video, I'd like to share with you why I decided to write a book, why I decided to self-publish my book, why I chose Palmetto as my self-publishing partner, what the process was like, and how things are going now. So I never really planned on becoming an author. That wasn't the dream for me. What I love doing is speaking to audiences. I've been doing it for about 25 years. I run a company called Jeff Joyner Training. I've worked with more than 2,000 different organizations in 49 different states. And I do essentially motivational speaking. I do training on topics like teamwork and attitude and handling change and customer service and how to have less stress in your life and how to have more fun, selling skills and leadership, all kinds of things. And I love it. Been doing it for a long time, work for myself, it pays well, and it's just been awesome. And I get asked all the time, Jeff, you should write a book. And it just always seemed like an intrinsically egotistical thing to do. You know what the world really needs now? Another book full of my ideas. And so I resisted writing a book. I had 3 conferences in a row that I spoke at that said, hey, Jeff, glad you're here. We got a section over here, a table set up for you to sell your books and to sign them. And I'm like, oh, I don't have a book. And they're like, you don't have a book? Most people that do what I do have a book. And so, but I went through some changes in the last few years. When the pandemic hit, all of my speaking events got canceled. Hundreds of them canceled. We're canceling our conferences, canceling our training, social distancing. And I'm like, no, don't cancel. Just postpone. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Haven't you heard? I fell for that scam. But so I was sitting around. I had some time on my hands. And I'm like, man, I need to look at some new and different ways to expand my reach, to connect with, influence, and impact people that may not necessarily hear me speak live. That's when I started my YouTube channel. And it's also when a friend of mine challenged me to write a book. I was at a conference in Nashville, and the organizer said, hey, Jeff, I got a challenge for you. I don't think there's a great modern book on communication skills. He said, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, that's 100 years old. And I think if somebody were to write a book about public speaking and selling skills and interviewing and connecting with people and communicating with your spouse and your kids, I think it would be really, really good. And I was like, I think you're right. And so decided to write a book. Don't know anything about that process, really nothing at all. So my first stop was I called up a friend of mine who is a very, very successful author. She has written many books, sold many millions of copies, and so called her up to get her opinion. And she told me, she has a contract with one of the largest publishers in the world, and they write her an advance check, and she writes the book and turns it over to them, the manuscript, and they have editors and publicists, and they get her onto radio interviews and get the book into bookstores. And I'm like, sounds pretty good. She said, well, the downside is I don't make much money on each book, like pennies on each book. And I'm like, ugh, pennies. She goes, and it's kind of hard sometimes to get accepted by one of these publishers. It might take you years. And they want to know how big is your following. And, I think I have a relatively small following, on social media. And so she said if I was going to do it today in the modern world and start over, I would self-publish. I really didn't know anything about that. And she said, well, when you self-publish, you got a company that's helping you with all the parts that you just can't do by yourself. The cover art, the formatting of your book, printing, binding, all that stuff. But then it's up to you to promote it and to grow the sales. And she goes, but the plus side is you keep most of the profit. You own the book. You keep 100% of the ownership rights. And you keep a lion's share of the profits when the book sells. And I'm like, I kind of like the sound of that. So I decided to self-publish. Well, there's a lot of options. As I started looking around, as you may know, a lot of options. Hundreds of companies that do this. And some of them I felt like were a better fit for what I was looking for than others. One of the things I teach in my training all the time is to decide, what do you want? What do you want? Some people, what they want is to write a book. They want to be an author, and that's their dream. And if that's you, good for you. For me, writing a book was more of a means to an end, right? What do I really want? Number one, I want to make a difference in people's lives. If this book just sits on my shelf, that's not helping anybody. It's got to be getting into people's hands and making a difference in the lives of other people, or else it's not worth doing as far as I'm concerned. Number two, I wanted to use it as a strategy to grow my speaking and training business. I know a lot of authors do speaking to promote their books. I'm a professional speaker that's writing a book to promote the speaking that I do. I also wanted to increase what I call increasing my streams, right? Number one, an income stream, right? That this book can generate some income for my family that might outlive me, hopefully. And but not just my income stream, but my influence stream. That I don't want the influence I have in the lives of other people to die when I die. And so a book is something that could live on. It could be part of my legacy, that my kids and their kids and their kids could someday see, hey, this is what grandpa or great grandpa was all about. And so that's the kind of stuff that really appealed to me. So what did that translate into in practicality? I wanted something that was high quality. I have seen some self-published books, and you probably have too, that were flimsy, goofy looking. They looked like they were made at FedEx office and bound for a 10th grade presentation. And so I wanted something quality. And so as I started looking into different self-publishers, I was looking at the quality of the books that they put out. I looked hard at about 10 different companies, narrowed it down to about 3. I found a website that listed which self-publishers you should watch out for and which ones were legitimate. And Palmetto was on the list, the shorter list of legitimate companies. And some of the other ones I were looking at, they were saying it's basically a scam. They just want your money. So I really narrowed my options down to 2 companies. And there were some differences. This other company, both looked like great companies. This other one, their focus was, we'll pair you up with a team of other authors and you can hold each other accountable and encourage each other. And I feel like I needed that as much as I needed help with all the parts of this process that I could never do on my own. Formatting a book, printing a book, getting it into bookstores. I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. The other thing that this other company, they sold exclusively through Amazon. That's who printed their books. That's who they worked with. Exclusive partnership with Amazon. And Amazon's a great company. It's a great partner, but they're not the only company. I wanted my books to be able to be sold through Barnes & Noble and Walmart and Target and Apple Books. And so Palmetto offered that where this other company did. The other difference was the price, that this other company was 3 times more expensive than what it cost to publish a book with Palmetto. So decided to partner with Palmetto. It's been fun. Spent 4 months in my kitchen at the table, brainstorming, coming up with chapter ideas, writing, rewriting. And so as I went through the process, I got about 22 rewrites through the process, had a finished product, went back and forth a little bit with Palmetto on, the formatting of the text and what I wanted it to look like. They were very responsive to getting it exactly the way that I wanted. Kind of a fun process with the cover art that, I came up with my idea. I just made up in PowerPoint. Here's what I kind of envisioned for the cover. And then their artist sent me a couple of options. I looked at the first one and I was like, I don't like that one at all. I don't like how but then another one like, oh, I like that. But I don't really like the font. Can we, went through some changes and we ended up with a finished product. And I'm like, man, I want this to be quality. That's my thing. It's got to be a quality book. I don't want it to look homemade. I want it, if it's on a bookshelf next to, John Maxwell and Grant Cardone and Stephen Covey, that my book looks like it belongs, that it's legit, and super happy with the finished product. I was originally just going to do a hardcover, right? Because to me, hardcover is quality. And my wife in her wisdom said, why don't you do a hardcover and a paperback? Some people want to pay less. And she was smart because now I'm selling paperbacks 10 to 1 over hardcovers. I make the same profit on each one, but people are getting what they want. And so here is my finished product. This is the hardcover, super high quality. I went with a paper dust jacket, but also, I forget what this is called, but has the cover on the inside too, so it's not just plain if someone doesn't want to keep the cover on it. It's got a cool picture here of this handsome guy in the back. But hardcover, also really super high quality paperback. And I really couldn't be more happy with how they came out. So, hey, I got to tell you, the process was not flawless. When it came time to get the books printed, Palmetto's got companies they partner with that do the printing of the books. And there were a couple hiccups in the process. One of the shipments I ordered, because I sell a lot of these myself, at conferences that I speak at and events that I do. And the first order, the paper on the pages, I was not happy with. It was something totally different than I had envisioned. Was not happy. And I thought, oh man, am I going to be stuck with these? It's like thousands of dollars for this, first order of like 300, books. And communicated with Palmetto, and you know what? They stepped up and said, hey, we want you to be happy. We'll get rid of all those. We're going to rerun the whole print run and send it, not charge me anything. And so they took responsibility for it. I had another problem in the first few months where a shipment of books came to my house, and the company shipping them, which will remain nameless, must have left them sitting out in the rain somewhere because a lot of them were water damaged. And I'm like, man, what the heck? Called up Palmetto, and you know what? Even though it wasn't their fault, they made it their responsibility to make it right. I actually got a phone call from the owner of Palmetto Publishing who said, hey, Jeff, we're going to make that right at our expense. He said, on that book, my name is on the book, but their name is on the book too. And we don't want books going out that aren't the very highest quality. And you know what? I was super impressed by that. When I do training on customer service all the time, I talk about, can your customers count on you that when there's a problem, you're going to make it right? I would rather work with a partner that I know for sure will make things right when there's a problem than one where there hasn't been a problem, but I don't know how they're going to handle it. And so kudos, Palmetto, for how you handled that. So how's it going? It's going great. I will tell you, it is in bookstores, all these bookstores. Not only can you go online and buy my book at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Target and Walmart and Apple Books, and there's ebook versions that are available on Kindle and Barnes & Noble Nook and Apple Books. And you know what? I wouldn't have known how to do any of that. Palmetto did all of that. Formatted it for ebook. That was all included in my initial, price for publishing a book. And they got it into bookstores all around the world. I'm blown away that my book is now being sold at booksellers in New Zealand and Australia and South Korea and Mexico and the Netherlands and Denmark and Malawi and the Philippines and South Korea. And it's just unbelievable. Now, frankly, I don't know if there are people in Australia that are sitting around reading my book, but it's available if they want to. And I've actually had a couple people I know in other countries, one of them in Switzerland, one of them in the Netherlands, that didn't want to pay to have a book shipped from America. And I was able to say, hey, let me tell you where my book's available in your home country. And so really kind of a really cool thing to me. The book sales are going great at my conferences. I've sold thousands of these books so far. In some cases, I've had conferences that say, hey, we got 400 people coming to our event. Let's bundle into the contract. Everybody gets a copy of your book. And I'm like, hey, now you're talking. When people who don't even necessarily want it are getting it, I like it. I've done some book signings, which is kind of a weird thing. People standing in line for me to write my name in a book. But it's a fun part of the process. I have had lots of clients that after I've been there to speak, they have, ordered, just last Friday I was in Florida and gave a copy of my book to the woman who organized the event. She read it over the weekend. She goes, this is awesome. She ordered 100 copies, one for each of the managers at this big organization. It's also led to some more speaking events for me. I've had about a dozen people who've gotten my book in their hands somehow, read it, and said, we need to hire this guy to come speak to our organization. So it's driving sales for my primary company which is one of the main goals and reasons and how I did this. Some marketing strategies I'm using, I'm putting out on social media. When people say, oh, I really liked your book, I'm like, hey, would you mind posting about it on your social media, tagging me? And that's led to more sales, which have led to more sales. A lot of word of mouth through LinkedIn and X and Facebook and Instagram. And whenever somebody features my book, I feature them on my social media. I've been having I currently have 34 5-star reviews on Amazon, and I'm learning that that's a big part of the process. People who know me are buying the book because they know me or have heard me speak somewhere. People who've never heard me speak, those reviews on Amazon. And so having, dozens now of people that say, man, this book is worth the money, I highly recommend it, has been a very cool thing. I put a little QR code up on the screen when I'm speaking somewhere. Hey, I wrote my first book. Here it is. I put it up on the screen. And it's funny, I was in Denver and there's 400 people in the audience. And I put up my QR code and I look and I see about 20 phones go up and people taking a picture of it. And I'm like, hey, what about the rest of you people? But you know what? Not everybody's looking for a self-help book or a book on communication. And that's okay. Because everybody who does get that QR code and then orders it, it's another opportunity for me to make an impact in other people's lives. And who knows who they might give that book to down the road too. I'm selling a lot of these books on online retailers, obviously, but I'm also selling them myself. I order them in 500 or 1,000 at a time, have them shipped to my house, and then I'm selling them on my own website. And so I bought the domain sayitLikeItMatters.com. And when people go to that, it links them to my website and people can order and they can ask to have it autographed and to who, and I can send autographed copies out to them. And so it's taking a little bit of time for me to sign those and package them and send them, but I make a lot more money by cutting out the retailers because I'm the retailer. And so I've sold, 2,000 or 3,000 books that way, and that's been pretty cool. So overall, got to tell you, I've been really, really happy with my experience with Palmetto Publishing. I just started my second book that I'm going to be working on this spring and hopefully have it ready and published and available for next fall. This one's going to be a different topic. My first book's really kind of narrow topic on communication skills. The next one's going to be broader about everything I've learned in my life about success and happiness and people who are winning in life versus people who are struggling. And I am going to partner with Palmetto again to have them publish this book. Been super happy working with them, and I think you would be too.